Hello, Off-Season After Dark fans. We have our first in-season episode, and for the life of me, I don't know what to call it, so we're keeping the name the same. Lots of people have asked, was I going to change the name, rebrand? Nope, we're sticking with Off-Season After Dark for the ease of it, and so you know where to find all the info we've done. We are fortunate enough today to have Ryan Schroat with us. So Ryan and I were former co-workers, doing writing for Mike Farrell, and have done many pods like this before together, though the roles were reversed when we did it before. But and for those of you that aren't up or haven't been reading, Ryan is an Illinois guy, so we'll have a lot of fun talking about Illini football, high expectations for them, big roster coming. Some guys came in there and they're a trendy pick to be some people's playoff team. So Ryan, glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and where the people can find you.
Yeah, so I've grew up in Illinois, big time Illini fan, born and raised in Central Illinois. Just been a diehard Illini guy my whole life. And, just really when I got into my early to mid 20s, college and all that other stuff never really led me to, I really wanted to get into journalism. And, sometimes life has a funny way of pushing you in other avenues and directions, even if, you want to do something. But by the time I was in my mid 20s, I had a child in my early 20s, and, I was just really focused on taking care of her and providing for her. So, I was like, what, how can I expand this? But, work, 9 to 5, doing other things. So then I got on X, which is Twitter, and I just started, posting my passion for Illini sports. And eventually, slowly, after a couple of years, people caught on and were like, this guy knows his stuff. Like, he really does pay attention, and he's got some good takes. And then I started using the Periscope app on Twitter.
Okay.
And so I would just live stream my thoughts every Sunday about what was going on with the Hoops team, what was going on with the football team. And over the course of now it's been 8 or 9 years, I built a big Illini following. Then Mike Farrell took notice to me, and I worked there with him for almost a year with you, did a podcast there. I've actually hosted all Illini radio show in Central Illinois, and have been really doing podcasts big time for the last 6 or 7 years. So, I love Illini sports, but I also love Big Ten sports. So, I follow Big Ten closely through all this expansion, and now we're to 18 teams, Mike. The Big Ten was the Big 12, and then the Big 14. Now it's the Big 18. And so who knows? It'll be the Big 20 eventually, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Big Ten country too. I'm originally from Minnesota. Then did grad school at an SEC school. Go Gamecocks!
There you go.
Bowl game last year, and then now
hold on, Bret Bielema. Hold on a sec.
Yep. And then now working in Sunbelt. So
yeah. Illinois sports is definitely a hotbed now for hot takes, because Bret Bielema's personality is just brash, but it's also confident, and he's a guy who's comfortable in his skin, who knows the game, and his way of coaching and his philosophy on football works pretty well for the Big Ten. It just does.
It does. Yep.
And even though he didn't finish very well in the SEC at Arkansas, to say he was a complete failure wouldn't be true. He took him to 3.
Not at all.
He took him to 3 bowl games, and they were an 8-win team, and they beat some really good teams while he was there, So
yeah, he's a heck of a coach, and clearly one of those guys who I think is good at identifying players that will fit for him, and then it usually works out with the guys that he takes in.
And let's be honest, that's how Illinois is gotten to where they're at right now. You have to do that, because all the blue bloods around, and I'm not Notre Dame's included with this.
Yeah,
they're very close to the Champaign, but of course Illinois and Chicago and all the big time offensive linemen, defensive linemen that come out of Chicago. that's feeding a lot of the Michigans, the Iowas, the Wisconsins, the Notre Dames, Ohio States. They come in there, and that's where they get a lot of their best players. And Illinois is grabbing a nice little handful from that, which they weren't in the past.
No.
So Bret Bielema is also getting the best downstate kids as well. They missed out on a couple tight ends here of late. One went – Max Sutter chose Alabama, who, by the way, isn't looking very good right now at Kalen DeBoer. And he's there. I've heard in that camp, they're just kind of watching how this season plays out. So Bret Bielema also doesn't burn any bridges in this recruiting game because now, Mike, all it takes is they may go to Alabama, but guess what? In less than a year, they may be back in Champaign.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And in that southern central Illinois too, Missouri's not too far away, so you got to worry about them as well. And Drinkwitz has gotten some top guys. And Luca Burden was an Illinois guy.
Yep. So they got a guy like Nick Hankins out of this East St. Louis, Belleville area, which was a big time Missouri. They wanted him bad. As a 4-star kid from the Metro East, and Illinois was able to get him. So Illinois is not just winning a handful of the Chicago. They're taking 2 or 3 of the top St. Louis kids from Missouri. So they're doing just enough where you can see the slow process, but also Bret Bielema is not spending as much on the high school player right away. He's retaining his best 3-year, 4-year guys as, like AKA Jerjon Newton, who had a big, a really nice rookie season for the Commanders, but he was an all Big Ten defensive lineman, and then last year retaining guys like Pat Bryant, who got drafted by the Broncos in the 3rd round. They're spending their money keeping the veterans around, which is smart because those are going to be the guys that help you win games, late in the year. You're not going to necessarily have 18-year-old freshmen winning those games for you late in November, and
like that Rutgers game was a good example of that last year.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And retaining Luke Altmaier was huge too because Tennessee was calling. No matter what anybody says, Tennessee was trying to get Luke Altmaier to come be their quarterback. So, he finally came out and admitted it right before the season. They just kind of wanted it hush hush. He offered him a good chunk of money, and he was just the comfortability of Champaign and what. Think about this for anybody. Luke Altmaier, Illinois starting quarterbacks in his 3rd year at Illinois, same offensive coordinator, same offensive lineman, same head coach. He's got 3 or 4 guys that he's been throwing the ball to all 3 years. Like the comfortability means something, Mike, because, nowadays that's just not how it works, man. You got it's almost like hockey line changes, Yeah, it's like new offensive line, new OC, new wide receivers. With NIL and the transfer portal, it's nice to have some familiarity, and that's where Illinois is where they are right now, ranked number 11 in the second AP poll. So a lot of interesting things going on in Champaign and some fun times for sure.
You had mentioned receivers there. What do you expect from Hudson Clement, West Virginia transfer? Didn't do much in week 1, just had the 1 catch. But how do you expect his role to be throughout the season?
Yeah, and you can tell me how you feel about this, but I think by week 4 or 5 he's gonna assert himself into that mix. I think he's just too talented. I think he's got really good hands. He's got good speed. He's not scared to go over the middle to catch a ball. But it takes some acclimation to get used to something, where you just come into it, 2-3 months before the season started, and you're not going to be at the same level as guys who've been in the system for 2 to 3 years already. And that's where you see he's kind of fighting for the 3rd, 4th, 5th spot right now he played, but he's also behind guys who've been here 3 years. So, but I think talent will outshine that eventually. And also he
was successful in the past.
Yeah. He's got to get on the same page too as Luke Altmaier. He's still figuring out some of these new pieces. Justin Bowick, a transfer from Ball State, who's very talented, had 2 touchdowns against Western Illinois. So I think Hudson Clement's going to be a guy that's going to make some big plays this year for Illinois for sure. But other than that, they've got Hank Beatty, who who just think about this, folks. Anybody, you probably heard Red Grange, right? Well,
Yep.
Hank Beatty just broke one of Red Grange's records, which was most punt return yards in a single game. So we're looking at over 100 years ago. He had 133 return yards.
Okay.
And he's a dynamic punt returner. He had 108 receiving yards as well as 100.
I knew he had over 100 receiving yards. I didn't know the punt return ones.
Yep. Wow. So he was Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. He's a true weapon in the special teams game. So Hank Beatty's a special player. And then Colin Dixon is the other guy who there's two guys who have solidified their spots. And Hudson Clement has every right to come in there and be the third or fourth guy here in the next couple of weeks. So, a lot going on. And then they play Duke this weekend, Mike. That's something I know you wanted to talk about a little bit as well.
Definitely. So, let's one question I want to ask you before we get into the Duke. So you were talking about, the familiarity, guys in the system, and then Bielema's kind of recruiting process, how, not burning those bridges and then being, willing to go in the portal for those guys. Next year in 2026, do you think Carson Boyd is the QB, or is there a QB not on the roster yet?
That's a good question, because that is the unanswered thing that, around the program. A lot of people think he's not on the team yet, but they really like Carson Boyd. I will tell you that they've got some really good kids coming in at the quarterback position. I don't think Michael Clayton will be the quarterback next year, but they've got They've got a 4-star kid already committed, Michael Clayton, in the class of 2026. Plus,
I did not know that, so that's good to know. Yeah.
Yep, and then they may have a 1-year rental possibly for next season, because they're going to have some really good young talent that you want to start developing. And
absolutely,
and so I would, if someone made me bet money, I would bet it's somebody right now playing on a ranked team somewhere who is looking for that chance to 1 year to go someplace to maybe make it more of a difference, or just get a fresh change of scenery.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Guy battling on a ranked team, or maybe you go after a G5 guy who started for 3 years and has 1 year left to play and wants to go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, and that's another thing, like a Marshall's quarterback or something like that, right? A talented guy. I'm just saying, I don't know the situation in Marshall, but
there's three of them played against Georgia. None of them did great, but nobody did great against Georgia.
So a guy who's doing really good things. Yeah, the group of 5 level, who wants to just take that next step and get a chance. I think that's a great point as well. But you know what? If it ends up being Carson Boyd and that's who they want to be their guy, I have full faith that he'll be able to do a stellar job. Barry Lunny, the offensive coordinator, has done a great job at Illinois. This is his 4th season. Hopefully, Illinois gets maybe 1 or 2 more out of him before he goes to become a head coach somewhere. I think. As you know, Mike, anytime
I think it'll happen with him. Yeah.
Anytime a program rises up from, just mediocrity at best to being somebody that contended for the college football playoff last year, to this year being a team that I think will make the college football playoff. Illinois finished, I think it was 15th or 16th last year in the final poll. I'd be shocked if it's not anything at least that, if not in the top 12. So having that back-to-back years, and not necessarily having, top 10 or 15 recruiting classes. They're having this year looks like it could be a top 25 recruiting class, which would be Bielema's best. But if you think about it, they're developing talent at a pretty high level.
They are.
And I think that is what is so appealing and so fun to watch, because the guys that are starting for them and making plays for them, for the most part, are guys that they recruited. Xavier Scott on defense, Miles Scott, Matt Bailey. If you look through their defense, their best players on defense have been guys. Gabe Akis, who they be who's going to be, probably a second team All-American, I imagine, maybe if not first.
Rosiak's been there for a few years playing.
Yeah, Dylan Rosiak's been there for 3 years. It's just developing guys. That's what they do. And the offensive line, besides J.C. Davis, who they took from New Mexico, who was already good anyway. He's a top 60, top 65 player in the NFL draft coming up. J.C. Davis.
Has Miles Scott always been there, or did he transfer from somewhere else?
Oh, Miles Scott was an offensive player that they turned into a safety. Okay. So they do that a lot too. They take guys. They always give them 1 year to kind of figure out where can this work for you. Are you going to be happy doing this? Can you benefit this program doing this? We're not just going to put you a place that you're just going to be a dead end. And they figured out, well, he's got good hands. Well, let him play receiver. Well, then they were like, he's really physical for a wide receiver. We could use strong safety with that mentality. And he likes to hit people, So they were like, would you be interested in playing, safety? So they've developed guys where they think these guys can thrive, even if they didn't come into the program being that. Like example, before we get to the Duke game, so Jerzon Newton, who's on the Commanders, his brother Jershawn Newton, who is a quarterback from Florida, just a supreme athlete. They're letting him be a quarterback this season and just letting him see how it goes. He probably is going to redshirt, but they're letting him get reps in and do some different things. And then as the season ends, they're going to, they'll come back to him and say, is this where you want to really give it your shot for your time here at Illinois, knowing, we're adding a transfer, you've got Michael Clayton coming in, you got Carson Boyd already ahead of you, or would you want to try the slot receiver? Do you want to play slot? Do you want to go play cornerback? So they're doing a lot of things like that, and it's really working out well. But the offensive line, though, is the other thing where they're developing guys. Besides, they have one or two transfers in there. 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, there have been guys that they've recruited out of high school, and they're just developing the depth. I think 6 of their 8 of their 2 deep on the offensive line are guys that have been in the program 3 to 4 years that they've developed from high school. So that's the thing here going on in Champaign.
Yep. Bart Miller's a good offensive line coach too. Was at Wyoming before that with Craig Bowl, where they, were one of the better G5 teams in the trenches. So he certainly has a good pedigree coming.
And Mike, I don't know if you knew or not, but he actually got his start with Bret Bielema at Wisconsin.
I knew he was at Wisconsin. I didn't know that he was at Minnesota at one point too.
Yeah. So Bret Bielema, his very last year at Wisconsin before he went to Arkansas, Bart Miller was his offensive lineman in that Rose Bowl season. By the way, for anybody who didn't realize, Bret Bielema took Wisconsin to 3 straight Rose Bowls in the Big Ten. So that was just, that goes to show you what kind of coach he is.
Yeah, no, heck of a coach. But let's kind of move into, obviously we know Fighting Illini dominated last week, played in-state Western Illinois, won 52-3. This week they have a pretty good game coming up. They're at Duke, who was a team that won 9 games last year in Manny Diaz's first year, won their opener against Elon, though we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is a game where Duke isn't ranked now, but they're on that borderline of not too far away. My first thought, or I guess I'd be on Illinois. I'm assuming that spread is going to be in the 2.5, 3.5 range. Do you know anything?
Yeah, so it started out 2.5. I think it's been up to 3, possibly 3.5. I think that I would be shocked though. It's 3.5 to 4 maybe by Saturday morning. I think people. I don't know. I think if people are not putting their money on Illinois, I think they're doing themselves a disservice.
At less than a field goal, I definitely would be hammering that. More than 3.5, there it becomes tricky for me, though. I'd still pick them to win. I would just have less faith if you're giving Duke the hook there.
Yeah, and here's why I want, and I want everybody to know, obviously, if you've been following along, Duke has Darian Mensah, he's the most expensive, I guess, transfer.
Yeah, we're
paying
hearing
him $4.5 million. He's a high level kid, a high level quarterback. The biggest issue, though, is his offensive line around him, and but with Illinois is just the waves of edge rushers Illinois is going to be able to throw at them, and guys, as I mentioned earlier, Gabe Akis was not suiting up for Elon last week. He had a bunch of time to throw the ball. If you give Darian Mensah a bunch of time to throw the ball, he's going to pick you apart.
Yeah.
But I just can't – I don't see that happening next week. I think Illinois has exotic blitz packages, but also just I think they're just going to be honest with you, better than the guys they're facing on the Duke offensive line. Now, on the other side of the ball, Elon was able to run for 160 yards on Duke's defense. Yeah. You know, I think that if you watch some of it back, Illinois purposely was running very vanilla running plays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I expect them to put that up a notch in Durham, North Carolina this weekend. Illinois has 3 very, very tough backs who do different things. Caden Fagan's a load. You know, he's a big bruiser that you would have seen at Wisconsin for Bielema. He's 6'2.5", 6'3", 240 pounds. And he's
heavy guy.
Yeah, he's a load. He's also fast too. He can get it up to 22 miles an hour. And then you've got Aiden Lawfrey and Khalil Valentine, who are both explosive and very quick around the edge. You know, Aiden Lawfrey had a big week last week, had over 100 yards against Western.
Okay.
So they use 3 backs, and they, you know, to keep guys fresh. And again, Illinois is returning 8 offensive linemen and 5 starters. So I just think the advantage, even with the game being in Duke, if it was a night game, maybe that adds a little bit to it. It's a noon kick.
Yeah.
It's a noon kick. I think there's going to be a ton of Illinois fans there too. So
okay.
I think Illinois is going to win by at least a touchdown.
Yeah. And I think, and you kind of echo this, in the trenches is where I think Illinois has the big advantage in this game, both sides of that. So in these early season games, I'm definitely going to lean on who has the better line play, if there's any doubt. I think that's definitely going to be Illinois in this one. So
yeah, I'm going to say this. I think it'll be a good game. Manny Diaz is a mastermind of different blitzing and coverages, and he's a good coach. And they do have some good players. Chandler Rivers, I believe, on the defensive side of the ball.
Defensive back, yeah.
And they've got some. They got some good players.
They're so aggressive. It's that front seven's just going to attack you, and he's going to leave his corners on islands to man cover. So that's what he's always done and had success with it. But you talk about Mensah. Stat wise, he threw for 389 yards, and had a good game there. Duke won that game by 45-17. But the final score there, if most of our fans here didn't watch that game, it was tied at halftime, and it was a one-possession game into the fourth quarter.
Yes.
So
Elon scored a touchdown with 10 minutes left to make it 24-17.
Yep. And
they were able to move the ball methodically down the field, running the ball. And so to me, I just putting things together here. I'm not saying that Duke didn't hide some of their own schemes. I know they did.
Yeah.
They didn't show Illinois everything they can do on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball.
No.
But if Elon is able to pick up 160 yards running, I mean, I don't know why Illinois couldn't put up 300. I'm just going to keep it real.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a good game. Yeah, I don't expect Illinois to win by 2 touchdowns or anything, but
yeah,
I think Illinois is the better team, and hopefully it gives people some respect of where Illinois is right now. I don't think they're too full of themselves. I think the fact that they keep having national people pick against them, just no matter what, it doesn't matter. I think they kind of expect it. Just like against Indiana a couple weeks, they're going to have everybody pick Indiana. They'll be undefeated and ranked, and then it's the whole, can Illinois do what Indiana did last year? And they've got experience.
That game's in Bloomington, right?
Yeah, the game's in Bloomington.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That'll be a fun one.
Yes, it will. There's a lot of fun matchups in this Illinois schedule. And I know we're about to break down some other stuff, but the
that
first
weekend, the next game,
games though.
USC looks good, and that's after Indiana.
And then they finish up with at the game 6 with Ohio State at home.
Okay.
So Illinois has at Duke, at Indiana, USC at home, and Ohio State with Purdue mixed in there as well. So then they travel to Washington, which is, a whole new fun thing with Jed Fish and that, and Illinois' former defensive coordinator Ryan Walters.
Yep.
Is their defensive coordinator now.
He's at Washington. I was talking about that yesterday with someone. Yeah. And Purdue and Maryland both showing signs of life so far this year. I mean, it couldn't get any worse for Purdue. They're going to get better with Odom. And we heard the Maryland people say that, hey, this Washington might be pretty good. Right? He might be pretty good because he looked very good in their opener against FAU. So. Oh,
yeah, no doubt. I think, Illinois plays Maryland at home later in the year. Yeah. We'll see how Washington does in his big matchups on the road. We'll see. I think he's going to be he's a good player, no doubt. But for any true freshman, there's going to be some big time growing pains in there.
It will. Oh yeah.
And it does look like is it enough to save Mike Locksley's job? I don't know. We'll see.
You at minimum have to get to a bowl game to do that, and maybe even win another one. And it's going to be hit.
We're talking about some hot seat stuff. I think Mike Locksley would be one that I definitely would put there. So
we will get into that. Will be a specific question I will ask you later. So we'll be talking about some of that stuff. But I guess that's a good segue to move into the coach. So talking about some of these coaches and how they did in week 1. So. Let me ask you this. What Big Ten teams do you think that we actually learned something about this week? Penn State, we knew they were going to dominate. A lot of these teams, Minnesota played Buffalo, Wisconsin, Miami, Ohio. How many of the teams do you think we actually learned something about?
I'm going to be honest. While I'm looking at this, I like the first 5, the first 6. I think Luke and Williams Jr. could probably swap. I think the main reason I have Luke at 5 is Luke's been there, won big games, and he proved it all season long. Williams hasn't done that yet.
I don't know, but I'd have Dante Moore that high either, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's okay. But now, what you said, what you said, who did we learn something about? I think. I think seeing Nebraska win a tough game like that even though it was a neutral field, it wasn't neutral fan base.
No, it wasn't.
But still, it was in Kansas City, and guess what? There was adversity, and late game adversity, and and you still got to beat the other 11 guys on the field. It doesn't matter how many fans are there or not.
Yeah.
And seeing them do that was really big for them and their program, because I can tell you, had they lost that game, I would have been worried about Matt Rule.
But I will say Raiola, out of all the QBs, and not just Big Ten ones, but in watching all those games Thursday and Friday, before the big weekend slate, he probably impressed me the most of the guys that played Thursday and Friday. Raiola looked like a veteran. He was comfortable. He made good decisions. He looked like the number 1 recruit he was a couple of years ago.
I think we learned that Northwestern's going to be bad again.
They are going to be very bad, yes.
Yeah, I think it wasn't just because they lost to Tulane. I mean, they scored 3 points, and Preston Stone, it's just like I don't know if they have any life offensively. I would say for
How is Northwestern going to do against Western Illinois this weekend, who you guys just played?
That I'm gonna be honest. I think Western's gonna give them a game. I think Western will give them a game. Western showed some signs of they can move the ball a little bit. They can throw it. Joe Davis, their head coach, is a guy that likes to sling it around, and he's got a couple weapons to do that. And they've got a fifth-year quarterback who had played at Washington State before. Then he went to junior college and things of that sort. But I think Western Illinois is going to give them a game. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 7 to 10 point game. Okay. Let's see. I think we learned something about Ohio State. I think Ohio State showed, that just because they lost so much from last year's team, that they're still a team to be reckoned with, and maybe they are the best team in the country. But I think Julian Sayin had a nice performance. I was curious about how he'd turn out, and being in his first real game, even though it was at home, he didn't look like too nervous. He didn't beat his team. He didn't beat it. That's one thing.
He did what he was asked to do.
Yes,
might be a way
but you might think, he didn't beat himself. That's a big thing. There's a lot of young quarterbacks that do that. So, and seeing them hold Texas to 7 points. I don't care about the Arch Manning look terrible stuff. I think the Arch Manning Heisman hype, I was always kind of confused where it came from, to be honest with you. But give that man a chance to settle down a little bit. Arch Manning's going to be good before he leaves Texas.
And even beside that, you still have multiple top-notch running backs and receivers that Texas had, and Ohio State's defense shut them down.
Yep, Caleb Downs is no joke. One other one that I do want to mention is we learned something about UCLA for sure. They look terrible, and then you've got all that money on Nico Lamaleva from Tennessee. He didn't look like anything that we saw last year at all, and so that's kind of you got to wonder too, is Deshaun Foster over his head?
He might be. I wrote about him a little bit in the hot seat.
Yeah, I think we'll get to more of that. These other teams, like I said, I don't think we learned much about. Minnesota beat a solid Buffalo team, but Buffalo was hanging in there. I think Rutgers hung on, and really Ohio could have beaten them.
And Wisconsin didn't dominate Miami, Ohio. I mean, it was a 17-point game, but
17-0 over Miami. But also USC looks like they're going to have a potent offense, but they also beat up on a terrible Missouri State team. So
they come to Marshall this weekend. Missouri State does.
And I guess we'll see if Marshall beats them up and whoops them like a redhead stepchild, then I'll say that what USC did isn't that impressive.
Yeah, I do think Missouri State's QB, Jacob Clark started his college career at Minnesota, actually.
Oh, did he? Okay.
But Jaden Maeva looked good in that game, but he had hours back in the pocket to get rid of it. Missouri State's D didn't put up much of a fight, so I'll wait till Maeva plays a top caliber competitor.
Yeah, USC doesn't really – they play Michigan State at home, and then they come to Illinois. So they're really not going to – don't get me wrong, Michigan State is going to be better this year, but I don't see them being more than a 6 or 7 win team. So I think when they come to Champaign in week 5, I think that's going to be his real first taste. So
I think that's fair. Yeah. And for Michigan State, getting to a bowl game in year 2 of Smith, after year 1 was disappointing, that would be a goal well accomplished, I think. So, we had, the coaches here and just talked a little bit about, Purdue being improved. Odom, I got to give Barry Odom credit. UNLV hadn't been to a bowl game in 24 years. He took them to 2 in a row. That was pretty impressive. And obviously Purdue hired him away. There's nowhere to go but up for Purdue. The Ryan Walters experiment there didn't work. I know he was an Illinois guy before. like you had mentioned. And
whose rankings are these, by the way?
USA Today.
Oh,
Yeah.
Look, I'm not trying to be an Illinois homer, but the thing is, like, do people just forget what Bret Bielema's done in the Big Ten? I mean, if you think about it, how many Big Tens has Bret Bielema won? I'm pretty sure it's more than James Franklin. I'm pretty sure it's more than Dan Lanning. I'm pretty sure it's about the same as Kirk Ferentz, if not more. I don't think Kirk Ferentz has won the Big Ten maybe twice. PJ Fleck for sure. He's only lost one time. He's only lost one time to PJ Fleck. I'm just looking through here.
Ferentz has won it twice. I will say one thing for Kirk Ferentz that is going under the radar. When Iowa wins their next conference game, he will break Woody Hayes' record for the most Big Ten victories as a coach.
I will say this: Kirk Ferentz, for his tenure, I would be okay with him being in front of Bielema. I think you have Ryan Day in front. I think you have Ryan Day in front of Bielema. I think you've got Kirk Ferentz in front of Bielema, and I think you got to put him right there with James Franklin. I think the fact that he's 8 it's just disrespectful.
I don't hate that. I would also have Signetti in with those guys.
But like top 5, you agree he's got to be in the top 5.
Let's see. Fair.
Bielema.
Yeah, he'd be 4 or 5 for me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that they have him 8th is just disrespectful. Like, it's like, come on, PJ Fleck?
Fleck took over a worse situation though, and he's certainly gotten them competitive pretty much every year. But
let's
better than a lot of people.
But let's look at their tenure as a coach. That's what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Big Ten head coach rankings. It's not Big Ten coach rankings.
Yeah.
The last 8 years. Yeah, he wasn't in the Big Ten then.
Yeah.
But you have to take into account the Big Ten titles and the wins he had at Wisconsin, plus what's he done at Illinois. And I want to say this. I think he's 3-1 against PJ Fleck at Illinois. So I'm just saying here that whoever did this is really not thinking, because Lincoln Riley's had some great success as a head coach.
Yeah.
And he's 9th. So Bielema's ahead of him though.
Yeah. And if we're going by, to me, there's not a rhyme or reason, because you have those in conference, but if we're going by your success at other jobs, Riley would be way higher. So
that's what I mean, though, too.
Reason, I think
it's so if you want to take the mediocre record at Arkansas, then you can say, okay, and then how about the great record at Wisconsin, and then the very good record at Illinois? That's all. It's okay though. It's not the end of the world. I just know that if me and you were doing this, I was like, there's no way you keep Bielema.
I would also have Jed Fish a lot higher, because he did good at Arizona.
Yeah. But
I would have Sharon Moore lower. He's done almost nothing as a head coach.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think here. And Greg Schiano, that's maybe fair, because what he's done at Rutgers, though, getting them more than competitive and getting them to bowl games, man, that's impressive.
And his first stint at Rutgers, he was good enough to get an NFL head coaching job out of it too. So,
he had Rutgers in the top. He had Rutgers in the top 5 nationally. Yes. Yeah,
and that is a tough place to win at.
It is. Yeah. I love Greg Schiano's a great coach. Yeah.
I'll ask this question. This is one I don't or haven't asked before. What Big Ten school do you think is the toughest to win at?
Besides Illinois, I would say Rutgers. And I'm putting Rutgers ahead of Illinois, by the way, anyway.
Yeah.
But Illinois has just been a tough one just because of for a lot of reasons. But I would say Rutgers.
For me, it would probably be Rutgers, and Northwestern might be. But even Fitzgerald had the odd double-digit win season when he was there.
I would say Indiana probably too.
Yeah, great call.
Yeah, Indiana is going to be a tough one football-wise, because, when you sit back and think about it, the tradition of Indiana football was what, Lee Corso maybe?
Yeah, pretty much non-existent.
It's non-existent. Illinois has tradition. Dick Butkus, Red Grange, Rose Bowls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but Indiana doesn't have any of that.
And you also like the other school on here, the one that UCLA is a school, it is tough to win at, but should not be. You should be winning games at UCLA, and not a lot of guys have. And Chip Kelly was all right there. They ran him out of town.
Yeah. It's interesting when a guy wants to leave a head coach to become an offensive coordinator. Yeah. But yes, did you heard it? Didn't you? I think you believe it, or you have verified it that PJ Fleck wanted the UCLA job, right?
He was a candidate for it. I not verified or anything, but it was
he was a legit candidate, though. He wasn't just a made up name.
No, I definitely not. I remember because when I'll do the lists, every now like I'll make my own, but then for a lot of those, I'm finding sources elsewhere.
I think he honestly, they fired Deshaun Foster. I think that he'd probably do a great job there. Yeah, because he's got that raw personality. He's got the belief. He's and I think he's a big city guy in Minneapolis. I know Minneapolis is a big city, but I think the bright lights of LA would be appealing to him. So
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
I also I don't think it would be the right move for UCLA, but I could also see them going another NFL guy, being in that. And I wouldn't do it if I was them, but they've done it before, and it's something I think to them they feel like they're hiring above their station when they get an NFL guy, and I could see him doing it, but I don't know that I would. But there's two other questions I always ask about coaches. What coach is on the hottest seat this year?
I'm gonna say Luke Fickell.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Luke Fickell. I'll go three names.
Okay.
So Luke Fickell, Mike Locksley, and I'm gonna say, I could say Deshaun Foster, but I'll say David Braun.
Yeah.
David Braun, and then Deshaun Foster's right behind him at 4. But yeah, Barry Odom's new. Jonathan Smith's got his second season. He's going to get a chance. Shiano's stable. Lincoln Riley, as long as he's winning 8 games, they're going to keep him. PJ Fleck's 8-9 games. Kurt Signetti, obviously, second. Matt Rule, no, because he just got him back to a bowl game. There's no way they don't get to another bowl game this year.
No, they're going to be better this year.
So I think I like that list. And unless you could come up with something better, I think, Locksley for sure. Luke Fickell, though, just because the way their schedule is brutal, Mike, It
is. And the one thing that might save him, his contract runs through 2031. So his buyout is we're in the Jimbo Fisher 60-ish million amount for buyout.
Man, I know, but those voices are going to be loud, man, when you're 4-8 or something, and I wonder 5-7 or 4-8 seasons. It's in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I wonder for him if it would be the soft firing, so to speak, where, hey, maybe he wants to take another job and they're okay with him going, so both sides just agree to, hey, you can go and you don't have to pay us a buyout, and we're not going to fire you and pay a buyout. So that could be something.
And Mike Locksley too is he had lightning in a bottle there with Tua, and now it's just bad. Billy Edwards is. By the way, did they ever come out and say how bad the injury was to Wisconsin's quarterback, Billy Edwards?
No, they may have. I didn't see it
because it was a soft tissue thing, and he didn't play the whole rest of the game. So, but basically, Locksley's like, hey, let's put my faith and my job in the hands of a true freshman.
Yeah,
and maybe that'll save me because we've got a lot of young players to show how good they can be in the future if you let me keep my job. But just things are going downhill for him there. And then David Braun started off with a bang, and it's just not been good since. No. So I think another another bad season where it's looking like they're just going to be kind of basically out in the middle of the ocean with no paddle, is not going to be a good look. And
one thing I wonder for Braun is, and this could hurt him after this year, going into next fall, they're moving into their new stadium, which is going to be unbelievable. Do they want a clean start and buzz going into that new stadium possibly? Which
it makes sense. Get a new hire, hire with some sort of Northwestern guy that can get all the Wildcats fired up for your new field, the renovation.
Yeah.
They've got an awesome practice field,
it's fantastic. Yeah.
I got to be honest. I give them credit where it's due. I love Illinois Smith Center, but man, what Northwestern has right on Lake Michigan, it's just it's glorious. So it would make sense if you want to go out and start the year with a bang. To me, do you want to give a guy a fourth year who's floundering and say, "Hey, buy season tickets"? Come on.
No, it's just a tough sell for everybody when you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those three are good with Foster fourth, because if you have another bad year with who they have at quarterback and what they spent, that's going to be rough to explain all that.
I might have Foster. I might reverse this, but I think for me it would be, Fickle, Loxley, and Foster would probably be my three, but Braun would be just outside of that top three.
Okay, so we have a consensus top four then.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and then the next question I was asking, this one makes people think a little more because it's not one that's on the radar as much. Which coach on this list do you think, with a good season or two, could get a blue blood job? And it's a tougher question to ask in the Big Ten and SEC. And I've done it with both of them.
They're already a blue blood, right? Yeah.
There's only a handful of jobs you would leave these conferences for.
Yeah.
So it even could be a job within the conference. But
okay, let me see here.
Who here could leave for a there? For me, there's two.
PJ Fleck.
Okay, he wasn't one of my two,
but I'm just.
But I get it. It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
Like at some point, I think he's going to say, "What more can I do at Minnesota?"
Yeah.
I think he's got as good as you can get. I don't ever see Minnesota winning the Big Ten. He's won 10 games. He's won 10 games there before. He's pretty much got them a consistent winner, getting the bowls, winning between 6 to 8 games a year, sometimes 9. But I don't think he's ever going to get them over the hump to a college football playoff. And I think he knows that too. I do. He'll never tell anybody that. But it's just tough when you're playing these teams year after year after year. It is. Hey, man, I got at Oregon, and then we got a bye week. Then we got to go at Penn State. Hey, but then we host Ohio State the week after that. Then we go to Ann Arbor, and we get a breather though. We get Iowa at home. Oh, that's a rivalry game. Yeah. Oh, but then we get Wisconsin. Oh, that's another rivalry game. Where's the breather in there?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you got to try to win 10 games. That ain't happening.
No, it's not.
So I would say PJ Fleck for me. I don't know. Matt Rule maybe.
For me, the two, and I'll
go ahead. Yeah, I'm interested.
Dan Lanning is one for me because of I think he's a prime candidate for Georgia or Alabama if and when one of them opens
I guess I was thinking of him. He's already at a blue blood with Oregon.
He certainly might be. You certainly could argue Oregon is, but I think both Georgia and Alabama would target him as one. The other guy, I picked a lower one on this, but Jed Fish could be. I think if he has it might take him 2 good seasons, but he's a Florida alumni, was there for the Gators, and then coached at Michigan as well. Either of those ones, if they would open, Jed Fish could be a guy that would be a candidate for that.
Jed Fish feels like a job hopper. So
yeah, Hunter. Yeah,
he's a job hopper. He's a guy who you could see in 2 to 3 years, every stop, boom, 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 until he gets to one where he feels like that's adequate for his worth. I don't think he's like worried about trying to build up Washington because Kalen DeBoer already did that. And he took the Bama job. I think he's piggybacking off of some success to see if he can get it back up to 9-10 wins maybe.
I will say, to his credit, he took over a terrible Arizona team, and they got 10 wins in his third year. So
yeah,
clearly he knows what.
And that was from what? From your man Rich Rod.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I got that Jed Fish. I think that makes sense. So I think those are good. They're good on the list. But PJ Fleck to me has got to be in the top 3 just because I don't see him retiring at Minnesota. I don't.
The other one I wonder, and I wouldn't put this guy's top 2, but one of them I wonder about. Barry Odom was decent at Mizzou. Then, like I said, nobody'd ever won at UNLV, and he did it. If he wins at Purdue, you wonder if some of those schools look at, hey, this guy won at UNLV, he won at Purdue. Maybe he's a guy that can help us take that next step up. And not to say it's a blue blood, but it's a better job than Purdue.
Yeah.
Like, hey, he's an Arkansas alumni. Maybe he goes and was D coordinator there. Maybe he'd go to Arkansas.
How many years is Arkansas going to give Sam Pittman a 6-win contract clause? Like, is 6 wins all the Arkansas is that what their goal is every year? I don't know. You know,
especially you got Odom out there who was the DC there, and then Rhett Lashley took SMU to the playoffs last year. He's an Arkansas alumni too. Maybe you try to pull a guy who you think you can pull.
The Rhett Lashley one to Arkansas would make a lot of sense. So.
It would. You almost want, with all the money SMU has, though, they could make a good package for him to stay, I would assume.
Yeah, true.
He would do
but
it.
I just still don't believe. I still think Arkansas would pay Rhett what he wants. So
I agree.
Yeah.
That's
that was a good question.
It was. Yeah, I appreciate that. So now we'll move on. Teams and the predictions, expectations, and whatnot. So I'll ask you, who right now, if you were looking at Big Ten, what 2 teams would you pick to go to the conference title game?
It's tough too because Oregon looked good, Penn State looked good, but again, who'd they play? Ohio State. And just because I know what they've got returned, I'll do Ohio State and Penn State. But here's the thing: they play each other.
They do, and
that could knock one of them out, and then that put Oregon in there.
For me, it's well, I think week 4 or 5, Oregon goes to Penn State. That game could be.
And that's the thing. It's going to be it's going to be 2 of those 3, in my opinion. I think.
I agree.
Well, I will say Illinois is a dark horse in that because they don't play Penn State or Oregon. They only play Ohio State. So let's say Illinois is 11-1 and they take care of everybody else because they didn't have to play Oregon or Penn State. That's where it's like. That's where it's like, hey.
I mean, last year, Indiana was a game away from making it, and nobody thought they were one of the 2 best. But the way the schedule worked out, that's how it is sometimes. Like with this one, I'd probably give Penn State the nod over Oregon because that game is in Happy Valley.
Yep.
And even if they lose to Ohio State, who Oregon doesn't play, you still got that advantage, the head-to-head advantage there. So that's the tiebreaker.
So that would be Penn State and Ohio State then, right?
Yeah. For me, it's tough not to say those 2, as much as I'd like to see Oregon or Illinois make it over one of them.
Yeah, maybe there'll be a Cinderella story one of these years, man.
Yeah. Now, how many and who playoff teams do you expect out of the Big Ten? So last year, Big Ten got 4. SEC got 3. ACC had 2, and the Big 12 had just the lone one. So a lot of movement. We can see multiple iterations there. Certainly if Notre Dame wins 10, they're probably one of the at-large teams. But
I've said this on all my podcasts and shows and interviews. I've got the 3 we've mentioned in Illinois. I think Illinois is going to make it this year. I think right on the outside looking in, you'll have, Michigan probably is going to win 9 games. I think they could compete for 10.
Yeah, their schedule's not that tough. And I think year 1 of Underwood, you could drop a game you don't expect to.
And that's why I have them at like 9-3. It could even be 8-4. I think this is Ohio State's going to get them this year.
Yeah.
And
USC could win 9 or 10 as well.
And that's what I'm saying. Just on the outside looking in is USC. All these things can change if USC comes to Champaign and beats Illinois. Things can flip flop there.
Yeah.
And then Nebraska's too is they've got a tough schedule though.
They're a wild card. Yeah, they do.
It's a wild card though. But yeah, so them beating Cincinnati was big. But I think they could definitely be an 8-9 win team this year, Nebraska, because they've got some big games at home. They've got Michigan at home this year.
They do.
So, but that's how I've got it sitting out. Those are basically my top 6, 7. You can flip flop however you want. After Illinois at 4, you got Michigan, USC, Nebraska.
Okay. Yeah, we had I think it was my SEC or ACC episode a couple weeks ago, but we did this, and at the time, my thought was the 4 and 3 inverses this year. So the SEC gets 4, Big Ten only gets 3. I don't feel as comfortable about that. And it's not even just about those conferences, but just in seeing what could happen to some other conferences. The Big 12 is going to be a gauntlet this year. There's so many teams that are going to be in contention there. They could maybe get to the ACC. Well, heck, now it looks like Florida State could be a contender with the schedule they're going to have in the conference. And Miami and Clemson Clemson lost to LSU. They're going to be contenders in the conference. They're going
to be a contender in the ACC, yeah.
And, SEC will get 3 or 4. Big Ten's going to be 3 or 4. Right now I'd have a tough time picking, but I did pick a couple weeks ago that I thought the SEC would get 4. Granted, I thought they would be Alabama, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss. That's probably not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, that's not going to happen now unless Bama does a 180. Yeah.
One of Texas or Bama is probably not going to make it at this point.
Yeah, that's crazy, man, to think of that.
Yeah.
Because just how tough their schedules are, too. Bama could not afford to lose to Florida State.
No.
And maybe this is a year Ole Miss gets in,
And I think looking at their schedule, if Austin Simmons has a decent year with how it lined up for Ole Miss, I think they're almost certainly a 10-win team, which would put them in the playoffs, I think.
Yep.
So,
yep. I think this could be their year for sure.
Yeah, I think it definitely might be. If you were picking right now 2 teams to play for the national title and 1 to win it, who would you go with? We'll say we did this a couple weeks when I had the Mississippi State guy on, and this was right after SEC Media Days. His hot take was LSU is going to win the national title. Well, they look pretty good in week 1, so maybe he's not.
They did.
All the way off.
They did, but also we don't know how good Clemson is. I think we thought that we did. Klubnik did look a little shaky.
And their run game was not good. They ran 19 times for 32 yards.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good reason, I guess. When you basically are hopeless running the ball. I'll say, man, not picking Texas.
No.
Yeah,
I think I might lean. It's so tough because I think Penn State is going to be good, but.
Yeah, but you know what though? I can make a hot take pick, and I'll say I'll pick Penn State. You know what? I'll pick Penn State. Well,
I was going to lean either Ohio State or Penn State. I think to play LSU would have been my.
As of right now, we'll say.
Pick, but I don't know which. I don't know which of those two.
It's like maybe Ole Miss. Maybe it's their year this year, right?
Yeah, could be.
How good is Georgia? Are they better without Carson Beck?
Yeah, I'm not a big
Bit of
Stockton
Miami.
believer, but maybe he does well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say, for fun's sake, we'll just say Penn State, LSU. How about that? There we go.
I'm on board with that. Yeah, I can get behind it.
I think Penn State's talent, man, their depth. I think this should be their year, man.
It should be. Yeah. If this isn't their year, James Franklin might not be the guy that could get you a title.
Yeah. Like last year, man, they had chances last year. You know.
Of course, maybe that goes for Brian Kelly too, if we put LSU in that boat. Yeah. Like this could be the year.
100%.
Yeah. But I'll okay, that was your hot that was a good one. So we've reached our conclusion tonight, everybody. So Ryan, why don't you tell everybody again where they can find you at and where they can, follow you, take in your content and stuff like that.
Yeah, so appreciate the time. I'll love to come back another time, Mike. Definitely. When the season's over, I'll be back. You can follow me along as at the bottom of the screen. There was a little ticker at 200 columns Rye on X. And then for our podcast, it's on Apple and Spotify, also on YouTube. Keeping it orange and blue. Yes, we factor and talk a lot about Illinois and who they're playing, break down their games, but we also talk Big Tens as well. So you can follow us along there, Keeping it orange and blue, and on X at 200 columns Rye.
And when I share this on YouTube, I will tag Keeping it orange and blue in the description there, so it'll be right embedded with the video, and then I'll tag you on X, Twitter, when it goes out. So
awesome.
It'll be easy for everybody to find. But Ryan, thanks for having you. It'll be fantastic to have you back again when Illinois inevitably plays an SEC team at some point, because I'm sure it'll happen this year.
Yeah. So if it's a college football playoff or a bowl game, I'll be here.
Absolutely. But have a good night, everybody. Ryan, thank you again for being here.